right, so we are back with you for our next part. I want to say the second part, but it's almost 10 to 9. I had a feeling that this should have been maybe like an hour and a half interview, but we see how it goes. Management, we could go over a little time. Well, program manager. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We could go over a little time. All right. So in studio, we have Mr. James Campbell. He's an architect and lecturer at St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College. And Mr. Desmond Pompey. Pompey. An engineer at the physical planning unit. So, gentlemen, good morning. And of course, in studio, we have Christal, Dianna, and myself, Roleza. So, Dianna?
All right. So before we took the break, I have a few questions. All this information, a lot of it is new to me as well. I've not yet built my house yet, and I know for a
Speak
fact.
it into existence.
Yes, I'm gonna build it. It's gonna happen, and I know that without hearing all of this information, I've always been aware of the fact that we have floodplains, we have people close to the seaside, we have persons on places that are prone to landslides, and it's a no-no for me, right? But I'm wondering, do you guys have any brochures or booklets with all of this information? Because education is important, and what you're saying here, we need to know. And being honest, when we leave this room, I'm not going to remember all of the things you said, and I want to. So is there a way for persons to get this information in the form of a booklet or brochure, something easy? We can come into the unit or somewhere else and say, can I have this booklet on such and such, and be guided?
Well, for my thesis, I am going to put a book in the library case. Suppose go and read it and then put
Okay,
it back.
lovely.
Put it back. Well, make it available online. Do like an ebook or something, and then people pay. Let people pay.
Well,
Yay.
that too.
Yeah.
Because for the entire Caribbean before, the whole Caribbean.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from physical planning?
The answer is yes. We have a booklet.
Okay.
I think it's titled Before You Build or something, like the planning process. So there's a little magazine type booklet that you can pick up. Like I said, before, working with the physical plan is an easy thing, and we encourage people to work with it. And you will get a lot of support and assistance from the physical planning unit. I just want to make a comment on the issue we discussed before the break. That is the pressure differences and so on with respect to leaving windows open and during hurricane something. Mr. Campbell is right that you could reduce forces on your roof by opening windows so that the air can flow through. But that is if your house is so designed. Usually you have internal walls, and usually you are required to, it is best if you batten your windows, right? Oh, yeah. It is best if you batten your windows because you don't want to open up your window and the wind get into a particular room and build internal pressure, because that worsens the situation. When air moves at high velocity, it reduces the pressure of the air. That is the same principle, Bernoulli principle. I think the science students will remember. That is the same principle of flight. Why your plane flies? Because the air at the top of the wing move faster than the air beneath it and create a pressure difference that lifts the plane, reducing the pressure at the top. And that pressure difference. Similarly, as air blow over roof, right, and the flatter the roof, the more effective this is. It reduces the pressure. And this uplift pressure could be as much as 60 pounds in category. For category 3, could be as much as maybe about 50 pounds per square foot. That's a lot of force that the roof will not be able to withstand. At least the roof designed for category 1 will not be able to withstand. Now, designing roofs for category 3 and 4, you're talking about rafters that are of dimensions 3 by 8. Currently, we use 2 by 6 for rafters. You're talking about 3 by 8. That is expensive. So when I talk about coming up with sensible policies, one proposal I have made is that there may be structures. There will be structures that we might want to consider to design for category 3 and 4, 5. Certainly the shelters, things that are designated for shelters, and public buildings, maybe schools and so on and so forth. So at least you know that persons have a safer place to take shelter in the eventuality of such storms. And that might address cost issues slightly. Of course, if a person could construct their home using those dimension rafters spaced at 16-inch centers, right now you used 2x6 or 24 inches centers. And if you could use a 3x8 or a 3x10 at 16-inch centers, and not only that, you have to increase the anchorage that you require, because it is a sort of weak link. The failure is at the weakest link, right? So if that's why the 2x6 will not work in a category 4 and 5 hurricane, because even if you anchor it properly, the lumber itself will break. The 2x6 would break. It can't stand the bending stress. So those are that is what I meant when I talk about having the discussion and what we're going to do what we're going forward. As far as climate change issues that you have mentioned, and energy management and conservation and so on and so forth, that is also a discussion that the technical people have had. Some people are saying that, boy, the only solution right now is for us to have concrete roofs, right? Concrete store heat. It can make your place really hot. Concrete respond. I mean, galvanized sheeting to respond to thermal changes. So it will crack, it will leak. So you need weather shielding treatment, and that is expensive. That can go right now as much as maybe $10-15 a square foot. And even those fail in UV light. And some of the treatments, I don't know if they're readily available here. You have polyurethane bond treatment. You have where you paint on. It have some that you trowel on. It have some that is a kind of tar, bitumen kind of product.
Pool paint.
Right. Right. And you need experts to help you put these things on with some kind of membrane place over it. See, it is usual that when we do concrete roofs in St. Vincent, it is our intention to add a second floor, using it as a floor. And if that is the case, putting those products in it might not be the best thing. So those are some of the comments I would make on that.
All right. Earlier you spoke about house maintenance. So my question is, how often should we maintain our structures?
Well, you carry out an inspection. It depends on your location. We have wood lice. We have if you have wood lice around your house. If we live in. Some people live close to forest edge. If you have wood lice, inspect for wood lice. There's also discussion now, and the like when I talk about our ecosystem, the Bureau of Standard is one of our support institution or organization, and material quality, I would advise, is something that we need discussion on. Material quality, warehousing. We know, for example, that some warehousing, the material is stored in the rain, in the weather. That not the best storage. Then you have the discussion about the galvanized sheet, whether it is the best grade. Of course, people buy where the pocket can reach. So They go to the supplier, and usually they buy the thinnest grade.
And I suppose this is where your contractor comes into play, because I remember in my situation that I was advised, because of where it is I was living, of the type of galvanized that would have been best suited. So I think James did indicate that some homeowners could be a little bit hard-headed, but I think from an individual standpoint, you have to think of it in the long term.
Yep.
Yes, you might move into an incomplete house, but at least you have a steady and sturdy roof.
Also, complementary wood lights.
Mm.
Not only wood. They would like the concrete too.
Who?
Yeah, they would go
They
through the
would like
concrete.
go to concrete.
They would
What
go
you
through
mean?
the
Go
concrete.
We're
through the
learning things this morning.
I have
Right?
seen homes, right? They would
Ah.
borrow
Borrow
stay in
through-
their
They
home.
would borrow in the concrete.
They go in the concrete and stay in there through the entire house.
Y'all
What
worrying
they
me.
eating? It's both
Something.
lice. It's like concrete lice too.
They probably adapted.
No, they would borrow through the concrete, and they would make nests and so on inside of your block walls and thing and so on. But they're feeding on. Remember, they're coming up from the earth, and that is why in your building process, one of the things that you do is to treat the soil before you lay down your foundation. You
Right.
bring in those professionals to treat the soil, which I believe should give you, and even those professionals will tell you, I think should give you about 10, 15 years, I can't remember, of treatment. But even those professionals will tell you that you can't completely get rid of wood lice. You have to have a cycle of treatment, whether it be every 10 years
10 to
or whatever the
15 years.
case may be, because they keep coming back. And they seem to like dark and warm environment from my thing. But those who deal with those would know best and could advise people. So you have that. You have rusting, because when you do concrete works improperly, that's why people get steel rusting and spalling of the concrete. And we have a lot of homes near coastal areas. Then with the galvanized sheeting, getting back to the galvanized sheeting, make a final point of that. Getting back to the galvanized sheeting, the manufacturer or the supplier normally provide recommendation. I know certainly East Caribbean Metals, as East Caribbean Metals say, would provide you a booklet, right? To tell you that these are the profiles that we have, and this is how you fix them. How many screws and so on and so forth. I know screws could run on 65 cents a one, so people might be a little bit stingy on the screws, how much screws they will buy, and so on. But they would provide that, and they would tell you what washers and things to use. Because when you use those things improperly, that's how you get the tear out. Yeah, you use less screws than recommended by the manufacturer, or you did not use the appropriate washer. That's how the galvanized sheet will tear out. Right? So they have their different grades and gauges. You decide for financial reason that you're going to go with the thinnest grade. They have booklet information as how you deal with this. Normally, people would buy the coated galvanized. They would tell you how you treated it. I don't think you're supposed to really scratch it. I don't know, because that's where the rusting start, and how you cut it and what you use to cut it and all those kind of things. So builders,
Rent.
Whoosh. I gotta live in the seaboard.
Rent
I live in the
instead. Don't build a home, rent.
Ah,
Let it be somebody else's problem.
builders, you see, in the design process, there's something called specification. That's something you don't see very much of. That is to specify the material used. And the reason why you use it, because in chemistry, and the students will know this, if you use dissimilar materials, metals, that's what encourage rusting through a process of electrolysis. Right? So, I mean, if they provide a sorted screw, right, and you may not necessarily know what material the screw is made of, it is suspected, or it must be that the manufacturer is providing a screw that is compatible with the galvanized. You might get a different effect if you now leave and go buy a different supplier and buy what you believe to be the same looking, they look the same,
Material is
but
different.
they may be different materials.
This needs to be a 2-hour program.
Yes.
And if that is the case, if they are different materials, that may encourage rusting. See, so it's just knowledge like this. I mean, and I know I don't want to hit too much on our builders. We're working with them. It's not that, yeah, they
them,
have
man,
the
hit them, hit
they have the minority dishonest ones, but
We know this to be a fact.
minority, maybe one or two.
He's in the seat, you know, so he could say so.
Yeah, maybe one or two, but for the majority, they are honest in their approach in the sense that they want to deliver a good product to the applicant. But what they're doing based on their experience, and it's not that they cannot provide valued engineering or architecture to the client. They could, because they have the experience, right? So we're not going to take that away from them, but it doesn't hurt to have a little consultation and communication with the designer to say, well, I think this would be a good solution. What is your position in it?
And something I realize as well too in St. Vincent, right? Most builders here,
James, come on.
most builders in this age range, you can say 45 and up, I've seen most, right? They have a thing that they always say that you can talk to me, you little boy. That gets to me every single time.
Yeah, well,
Because they feel like they're in the construction building for
For so long,
so
for
long.
decades,
And
right?
I know come my little degree paper. I want to tell them what to do. I studied this for a reason. To help you better your skill. But if you like your little boy, you can't talk to me. And that's basically every time.
but sometimes too, it's the approach, because they do have experience and they do have solutions. And because in the building process, you're going to encounter problems, and you need experience is valuable in terms of solving some of the problems and getting the work done. So I mean, it's just a let us work together, let us share and say, you know, so that you can say, well, Pompey boy, this is what I believe is the solution, and I will be able to ask certain questions and say, well, you know, how can we get from A to B? Maybe cost implications, or you know, from an engineering standpoint, that might not work, and so on, and have that kind of discussion and share information. I think they are receptive, and you two must be receptive. I mean, they're not dumb. You can't treat them as if they have the experience, they know the work, they know what they're about, right? And for those one or two that are dishonest, it's not because they're not skillful. It's just a little bit greed and so on and so forth and so forth. So I mean, and right now we need them more than ever for rebuilding of the Grenadines and Simmons. So we have to value them.
And there are some builders that I know they're honest, and I call them during my process as well too. If I'm doing a drawing, I call some builders to advise me on some things they want to do when I'm building. So some of them are very good, but there's one or two in between that feel that they know it all.
All right, so we're going to allow each of you a minute to wrap up, all right? Because we have gone over time, but understandable. It's a very informative program. I think we probably need to have you all back again for another session, maybe just to pinpoint on particular areas, to narrow it in a bit more, right? But so James, as a younger person, we'd allow you to go first, right?
Well, first thing is I'm gonna go to steel, right? As I mentioned before, each steel connects from foundation to roof. If there's a crack in your wall and it rusts from there, the rust spread through the entire house. You may not show up right next to the crack, like shop down the next room across the hall, but it spread through the house. And when steel rusts, it flakes off, and that creates a crack in your wall and so on, right? So I advise persons when they do in your house, maybe costly, but get the best advice possible. Contact professionals. Don't feel you know it all. There's some homeowners who also build houses on their own because they feel, okay, I could do this. I'm not saying you can't, but it's good to have advice from other persons to guide you along the way. Like our friends, architect or engineer, get the advice on what you're doing, and then guide you to what you're doing for your house, because it's an investment, a serious investment to money being spent to get your house built, right? So best thing to do, get it done properly to avoid doing changes and maintenance sooner than it need to be maintained. That's me.
Okay, Mr. Pompey.
Yes, well, my plea, as usual, is to work with the physical planning unit. Get your application done. There's no shortage of designers to do your designs for you. There's during construction, the builder, of course, is interested in, he is running a business, so he is interested in profits. And any businessman will know that one of the ways to maximize profits is to cut costs, right? So there might be some misalignment in terms of what the objectives are, but he have to focus. He focuses on that because otherwise he's out of business. So you may need the inspection and compliance mechanism of the physical planning to assist you in ensuring that the builder is doing what he is supposed to do. Just in the same way, it doesn't say that the builder don't have the skill, just in the same way that the banks send out their evaluators to ensure that the money is being spent. You have somebody on the ground to ensure that what is being done is according to the designs. For the most part, the designs that we have are of good quality. The issue, of course, is from getting the design to the build production. So again, work with the physical planning unit, call on us to carry out the inspections as is one of your responsibilities under the law. We are not a nuisance. We're not humbugging your work. We're not that is one of the things that you may hear builders say, that because they're interested in speedy work. They would say, build physical planning is slowing me down, or whatever the case may be. They may say that, but it is to a greater benefit to the applicant to have the physical planning involved from design to the finished product and completion, and having a certificate. Now, we have also called on our utility companies to work with us too. I mean, this connection of utilities to not the best built and designed buildings, we have seen cases where the utility companies might connect light to some structures that are questionable. So I mean, work with us.
As in call y'all in?
Well, you may not want to connect water to a building that did not have planning approval. Or you may not want to connect electricity to a building that did not have planning approval, for example. There may be exceptions, of course, right? There are always exceptions, you never know. But, you may not want to provide these services to structures that cannot produce evidence of having a planning approval, things like that. And that helps with the compliance mechanism.
All right. So it has been a very, very, very interesting conversation this morning. We will have to arrange to have a part 2. All right. So this morning we just concluded an interview with James Campbell, architect and lecturer at the St. Vincent Grenadines Community College, and Mr. Desmond Pompey, engineer at the Physical Planning Unit. And we were speaking on the topic of resilient designing and building in the face of climate change. So Mr. James and Mr. Pompey, thank you so very much for being here this morning and for the information that you've imparted, not just to us here in studio, but to our listeners and as a whole. All right. So thanks very much, guys.
Most
Thank
welcome.
you.
All right. So the timer in SVG is 8:14. And
8:14.
oh yes, you see, that's why, because we were supposed to go another hour. That's what happened, right? So the time in SVG, it is 9:14, and we are going to jump into our ECCB currency exchange rates at this time.
99.9 WEFM.
And our ECCV currency exchange rate comes to us with the compliments of Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Brick by brick, piece by piece, building with technology.